Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new story. This is a story of dreams, courage, and starting over in a new country. My name is Mateo. 2 years ago, I left Mexico with just $2,000 and a dream to build a better life in Canada. But there was one big problem. The cold air touched my face as I stepped off the plane. Snow covered the ground, and bright lights shone all around me. People walked fast, speaking a language I barely understood. My heart pounded. This is it, I thought. My new home. I was so nervous. There was one big problem. I didn't speak English. At the airport, I held my passport tightly. The line moved forward, and soon I stood in front of an immigration officer. He was tall, serious, and spoke quickly. "What is the purpose of your visit?" he asked. I froze. Purpose? What does that mean? I had practiced some English before coming, but in this moment, my mind was empty. I swallowed hard. "Say something, Mateo." New life?" I said nervously. The officer raised an eyebrow. Did I say it wrong? "Are you here to work or study?" he asked again, his voice slower this time. I nodded. Yes, no, what do I say? After a long second, he sighed and stamped my passport. "Welcome to Canada," he said. Relief washed over me. First challenge. Done. But my journey was just beginning. I didn't speak English. At the airport, I clutched my passport, my heart racing. The line moved forward, and soon I found myself face to face with the immigration officer. He looked at me, serious, and spoke quickly. "What is the reason for your visit?" he asked. I panicked. Reason? What does that mean? I had studied a little English before coming, but in that moment, my mind went blank. I took a deep breath. "Say something, Mateo." New life?" I mumbled. The officer stared at me, then repeated, "Are you here for work or study?" This time, his voice was slower. I hesitated. Yes? No? What do I say? After what felt like an eternity, he exhaled, stamped my passport, and handed it back. "Welcome to Canada." Relief flooded through me. I made it. But this was only the beginning of my journey. A new world. The cold air cut through my jacket as I stepped outside the airport. Snowflakes landed on my hair, melting instantly. I had never seen snow before. Back in Mexico, winters were warm. Here, everything was white, quiet, and freezing. I took out my phone and checked the address of my Airbnb. My hands shook, partly from the cold, partly from nerves. I needed to find a taxi, but all around me, people were speaking fast. English words flew past me like the wind. I spotted a line of taxis and walked toward them. A driver rolled down his window and said something. I didn't understand. Airbnb?" I said, showing him my phone screen. He glanced at the address and nodded. "Hop in." Hup. My brain searched for the meaning. Then, he gestured to the back seat. Oh, he meant get in. I climbed inside, my heart still racing. The car pulled away, and the city lights blurred past the window. Everything was so big. The streets, the buildings, even the signs, so many words I couldn't read fast enough. I clenched my fists. I have to learn English, I told myself. I have to. After a long drive, the taxi stopped in front of a small house. I paid, grabbed my suitcase, and stepped out. The air was colder than before. I reached for the door handle of the Airbnb and paused. This was it, a new country, a new life. I took a deep breath and walked inside. The first challenge. The Airbnb was small but warm. A tiny heater hummed in the corner, filling the room with soft heat. I dropped my suitcase on the floor and sat on the bed. My body was tired, but my mind raced. I needed food. I hadn't eaten since the flight, and my stomach growled. I opened my phone and searched for a supermarket nearby. There was one just 5 minutes away. I stepped outside, pulling my jacket tight around me. The cold air stung my face, but I kept walking. The streets were quiet, except for the occasional car passing by. Everything felt unfamiliar: the houses, the street signs, even the way the air smelled. When I reached the store, automatic doors slid open and warm air rushed out. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. Rows of food stretched in every direction. People moved quickly, grabbing items and placing them in carts. I needed something simple: bread, milk, eggs. But there was a problem. I couldn't read the labels. Back home, I knew every brand, every product. Here, everything looked different. I picked up a carton of milk. The words on the label made no sense to me. Was it whole milk? Low fat? I had no idea. A store worker walked past. I hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Excuse me," I said, my voice shaky. "This, milk?" The worker smiled. "Do you need help?" I nodded quickly. "Yes, good milk?" She laughed kindly. "This one is whole milk." "Is that what you want?" Whole. My brain searched for the meaning. Then I remembered whole meant full. I smiled, feeling a small spark of confidence. "Yes, thank you." She nodded and walked away. It was a small moment, but it felt big. I had spoken English. I had been understood. Maybe, just maybe, I could do this. The days after I arrived in Canada were busy. I woke up early, excited but also nervous. Everything felt new. The streets, the people, the food, it was all different. But I told myself that I could handle it. I decided to explore the neighborhood. The cold air touched my face as I walked down the street. I looked at the houses. They looked so beautiful, with big yards and flowers. It was like a dream. I saw a small cafe on the corner. The warm light from inside made me feel happy. I hadn't eaten much that day, so I decided to go in. The cafe was small and cozy. It smelled like fresh coffee and baked goods. The woman behind the counter smiled at me. "Hi, what can I get for you?" she asked. I looked at the menu. It was all in English. I understood some words, but not everything. I felt nervous. Can I have a coffee?" I asked, hoping it would be easy. The woman smiled. "Sure. What kind of coffee would you like?" I thought for a moment. "Just regular coffee, please." She nodded and started making the coffee. I waited, feeling nervous but also excited. I was in a new place, and I was trying to get used to everything. When she gave me the coffee, I said, "Thank you," and went to sit by the window. I looked outside. People were walking by, talking and laughing. They looked so happy. I wanted to feel like them, comfortable and confident. I sipped my coffee. It was warm and good. I thought about how far I had come. I had worked hard to get here, and I wasn't going to stop now. I had already faced a lot of challenges. I had learned how to get around, how to talk to people, and how to find food. But this was just the beginning. I knew there would be more challenges ahead, but I felt ready. I smiled to myself. I had made it. I had come so far, and nothing could stop me now. The next day, I decided to look for a job. I had saved some money, but I knew I needed to work to make sure I could stay in Canada. I searched online and found a job at a small store. It wasn't a dream job, but I needed something to start. I put on my best clothes and went to the store for the interview. I was nervous. My hands shook as I held my resume, but I knew I had to try. When I walked into the store, a man behind the counter looked up. "Hello," he said with a smile. "How can I help you?" "Hi, I'm here for the job interview," I said, feeling nervous but trying to stay calm. He smiled and told me to sit down. The interview was simple. He asked about my experience and why I wanted to work there. I told him that I was new to Canada and wanted to work hard. I explained that I had experience in my home country, but I was still learning English. He nodded and seemed happy with my answers. "You start tomorrow," he said. "Welcome to the team." I couldn't believe it. I had my first job in Canada. The next day, I went to work early. I was excited, but also a little scared. I didn't know how to speak to all the customers yet, but I was ready to learn. The job wasn't easy. Sometimes I made mistakes, and sometimes I didn't understand what customers said, but I kept going. Every day, I tried my best to learn more English and do my job well. After a few weeks, things started to get easier. I felt more comfortable at work. I could understand more English, and I was able to talk to the customers without feeling so nervous. One day, my boss called me into his office. "You're doing a great job," he said. "We want to promote you." I couldn't believe it. I had been working so hard, and now I was getting a promotion. I worked even harder after that. I saved money, learned more English, and slowly built a better life for myself. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. 2 years had passed since I arrived in Canada. I had worked hard, learned English, and found my first job. Life was getting better, but deep inside, I felt I could do more. I didn't just want to work, I wanted to create something for myself, something bigger. I sat in my small apartment one evening, thinking about everything I had done so far. I had saved money, and I was in a better place than when I first arrived. But I knew that if I wanted to really change my life, I needed to take a risk. It was a big decision. Should I stay in my job and continue working for someone else? Or should I take the chance and start my own business? I thought about my family back home. They were proud of me, but I wanted to make them even prouder. I remembered the dreams I had when I first came to Canada, the dreams of building something big and successful. After a lot of thinking, I decided to take the risk. I was going to start my own business. I spent the next few weeks researching. I read books, watched videos, and asked people who had already built their own businesses. I learned as much as I could, but I knew there would still be challenges. No one had told me it would be easy. I started small. I found a place to rent and bought the equipment I needed. Every day I worked hard, trying to make my business grow. Sometimes I was tired and unsure, but I kept going. As the months passed, my business slowly grew. I was learning new things every day. I hired a few people to help me, and together we made the business stronger. We worked hard, and slowly things started to change. The hard work was paying off. One day, I checked my bank account and saw something I never thought I would see. I had saved over $100,000. It wasn't the million I dreamed of yet, but it was enough to know that I was on the right path. I had come a long way in 2 years. From a nervous immigrant with nothing but dreams, I was now a business owner, building a better future for myself. The turning point. Things were changing fast. The small business I had worked so hard to build was now showing signs of growth, but I felt like I was hitting a wall. I knew I needed to do more if I wanted to reach the next level. It wasn't about just staying busy anymore. It was about making smart moves that could lead to real success. One day, I received a call from an old friend. He was someone I had looked up to in my home country, a successful businessman who had made a name for himself. He'd been following my progress from afar, and I could tell by his voice that he was impressed. "I've been watching you," he said. "You're doing great, but I think you're ready for something bigger." His words stuck with me. I had always been cautious, afraid of losing what I had built, but deep down, I knew he was right. It was time to take a risk, to push beyond what I thought was possible. The idea of expansion started to grow in my mind. Could I really take my business to the next level? Could I make it bigger, more successful? I thought about the options. I could continue on the same path, slowly growing, or I could seize the moment and go after something bigger. After thinking it over, I decided to take the leap. I was going to apply for a business loan. It was a big step, but it felt like the right one. With the loan, I could invest in new equipment, hire more staff, and expand my reach. It wasn't easy. The application process was stressful, and I wasn't sure if I would be approved. But when the bank finally called and said I had been approved, I felt a wave of relief. With the money in hand, I moved quickly. I hired more people, upgraded the equipment, and started reaching out to new customers. The business started to pick up, slowly but surely. It was hard work, but I could see the growth. Looking back, I knew this was the moment that would change everything for me. This was the turning point. The first few months after receiving the loan were full of excitement, but also full of challenges. I worked harder than ever, and the stress was constant. Some days I felt like I was juggling too many things at once. But each small victory, like a new customer or a positive review, kept me going. As the business grew, I learned more about what it meant to be a leader. I had to make tough decisions like hiring the right people and setting clear goals. I had to trust my team, and that was something new for me. Back when I started, I did everything myself. But now, I had to share the responsibility. I also started thinking about how to stand out in a crowded market. There were many businesses like mine, but what made me different? I realized that the answer wasn't just about offering good products. It was about creating a memorable experience for my customers. I began improving the customer service side of the business, focusing on quality and making sure every person who walked through the door felt valued. Slowly, it paid off. More customers came, and they kept coming back. Word of mouth spread, and the reputation of my business began to grow. But even as things were improving, I knew there was still more to be done. I wasn't done yet. I had a vision, and I wanted to see it through. One afternoon, after a long day of work, I sat down and took a moment to reflect. I thought about the 2 years I had spent building this business, about the challenges I had faced, and about everything I had learned along the way. I had come a long way. And while there was still a long road ahead, I knew one thing for sure. I was on the right path. As my business grew, new opportunities appeared. More customers came, and my reputation started to spread. People began to know who I was, and they trusted my work. One day, I got an important call. A big company wanted to work with me. This was a big chance for my business. The company offered a partnership that could help my business grow even more. I thought about it carefully. It was a big decision, but I knew I had to take it. The partnership helped me sell more products and reach new areas. We worked together to improve how we delivered to customers. Slowly, I started to see the results. The business was becoming bigger and more successful. I learned that when a good opportunity comes, it is important to take it. The chance to grow my business was real, and I was ready for it. Living the dream. Now my business was strong, and I had built something big. We had many customers, and my team was great. I had done it. I had turned my dreams into reality. I looked at everything I had achieved. I was no longer just a new immigrant. I was successful. I had built my business from the ground up, and it was now worth millions of dollars. I had the life I always dreamed of. The money was important, yes, but it was the journey that mattered most. Every challenge I faced made me stronger. I could finally live comfortably. I bought my dream house, helped my family, and even traveled to places I never thought I would go. I thought about the hard days when I didn't know if I could keep going, but I never gave up. I kept pushing forward, and now I was living the life I always wanted. I had millions in the bank, but the most valuable thing I gained was confidence. I knew that no matter what happens next, I was ready. This wasn't just the end of a dream, it was the start of something bigger. The road ahead would have more challenges, but I was ready for them. Living the dream wasn't just about money. It was about becoming who I always wanted to be. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So leave a comment below. Let's talk about your dreams and how you're making them come true too.